Podcast. We are back once again, somewhat later than promised. We said we'd be back in about a week, and it turns out it's been like a month, maybe 6 weeks, something like that. I had some back issues, so never mind. Turns out, keep your core strong, kids, because otherwise you'll end up with bulging discs. That was all right. Second go around of recording this, isn't
it? Not bad, man.
No, we had a small goof on the first attempt. Courtesy of Omar. How are you doing, Omar, with your blurred background instead of something else?
Better now, of course. Yeah, no bulging discs here. Just really terrible knees. Horrible arthritis in my hands. It's just, what are you gonna do?
I sympathize. I get the clicky knee. It doesn't necessarily cause issues, but it's a very loud one. As ever, I am Robin Thornton, and we will be taking you through some cyber. I want to say wares, but that's not really the right word, is it? Cyber musings.
Musings. I like that.
Today. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So we are freestyling it more often these days now because I get in my own head about episode plans, and you're very much more freewheeling with that kind of thing anyway, and you've dictated to me that we are going to slightly freestyle. So what do you want to go into?
Jaguar, man. Talk to me. It's
Jaguar.
Homeland.
What about Jaguar?
Yeah.
Shit. Yes, they've been done. Jaguar Land Rover been done over on the ransomware, haven't they?
Yes.
I have to admit that passed me by because I kind of just saw it very much as the same sort of thing as the Marks and Spencers. So I have not kept up to pace with this. Do tell what's happened.
No love for the Homeland. I see. No love for the Homeland.
It's not bad. They're just really expensive, and especially if they break.
That's true.
I don't have money for a Land Rover yet.
That's
if anybody wants to donate to the Buy Me a Coffee or whatever, the 70-80 grand it cost to buy one, then please feel free.
It's a lot of coffee. That's a special type of coffee. 78 a kilo. Anyway, that's some
street value.
Super. Yeah, that's absolutely. That's not wholesale.
Wait, does that mean a key of finest Colombian is probably worth about a Land Rover?
I would say, dude, I'm not up on that. I want to say allegedly. Potentially.
I mean, I'm the one asking, so I clearly don't.
That's very true. I think if anybody in the comments wants to drop what a key is going for,
what's the street price for a key,
and the region, please, right? The region, you don't got to get super specific. Just say part of the world or country that you're in. But the thing that gets me, that I'm keeping tabs on, because as you said, right, it's they got ransomware and then everything went to shit, and then it's. The Marks and Spencer comparison is very, I think, accurate insofar as no disaster recovery plan that we can see, no business continuity plan. Like, they keep on, the thing that keeps this hack in the news, at least across my feeds, is that they keep pushing back the time that they're going to be back up and running, right? So that's the one aspect that I wanted to get your take on. And then the other one is the reporting often cites that, like, hey, while Jaguar might survive, it, as you said, they're very expensive, so they might have a war chest, they might bounce back, it might suck, it might depress earnings, etc. Right? It'll be a material event, but a lot of their own supply chain, especially with the just-in-time aspect of a lot of that supply chain, a lot of those, increasing amount of those partners are going under. Right, Jaguar is their primary customer. Jaguar is, so it could be. I'll take it in the direction of, like, let's talk about supply chain risk and third-party risk management, where it's not even
your
just
topic.
Oh man, I'm all about this, and that's why, of course, it's top of mind. But if you want to talk about the BCP-DR aspect of it, you want to talk about, holy shit, it's another ransomware thing. I told you so. Right, where do you want to go?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I'll take it. I would take it back to the Marks and Spencer bit on the grounds of, because we can only really talk about what we know. I don't know the setup of Jaguar Land Rover's supply chain, all that sort of stuff. I don't know how sort of Nissan or Toyota they go with their production lines, all that sort of stuff. I know that they did just do the sort of rebrand that everyone thought was woke as hell and all that, and I don't know exactly how that's gonna
I forgot about that.
Impact any of it, because it's right as they're sort of well, I mean, obviously, no, it's not quite right as they're changing the whole brand, but it's like as they are trying to do this brand transition, the actual automotive design aspect of it will have been done, well, at least started probably 2-3 years ago, because that's how long some of these, maybe even more, because that's how long some of these design processes actually take in that sort of sphere. It's a tricky one, and it would be par for the course if Jaguar Land Rover did end up in real trouble, because they are a brand that has long sort of struggled. British automotive doesn't do particularly well.
Need another
anyway.
war, right? We gotta start producing.
I don't even know what that fix it, because TVR was like created in a shed in Blackpool, and the electronics were grounded to the bodywork and stuff like that. Like they were an absolute mess of the car. Just a call here, hasn't it? You know, Rolls-Royce is owned by the Germans. MG went out of business and kind of got resurrected a little bit sort of recently. Vauxhall is Opel, which is owned by General Motors, but you don't actually see any of those over stateside anyway. That's very much a European and British thing. You know, Aston Martin have been bought by the Indians and sold to God knows whoever, and this, that, and the other, you know, back and forth for as long as anyone can remember. Jaguar Land Rover again ended up in the same sort of position, being owned by Tata Steel, who's Indian. So it's one of these things where just like, I wouldn't even want to speculate on what this kind of attack is going to do to Jaguar in the long run. I think they've probably got enough challenges on their hands as it is with the whole tariff thing anyway, although not that I would say necessarily Jaguar Land Rover's target customer is probably going to be all that bothered by tariffs. Like if they want a Land Rover, they're going to buy a Land Rover. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think maybe, again, going back to the piece about we can only really comment on what we can see and say. Again, I've not seen an awful lot of it because I've just been a little bit sort of checked out on that basis. If they've handled it anywhere near the way that Marks and Spencer's did from a PR perspective, they might not be in as bad a position as they think that they are, or their PR people are just really, really good, because the thing that Marks and Spencer's did not do was over communicate what happened and be speculative in that sort of sense, being like, oh, it might be this, it might be that, it might be the other, and then have to renege on it. But they also didn't bury their heads in the sands and pretend that they hadn't been attacked, or that everything was okay, or that it was just an IT issue. They came out and said quite clearly and transparently, we have suffered a cyber incident. You know, we are experiencing problems. The online ordering stuff is impacted. We don't yet know when it's going to be back up, but we will be transparent with information as and when we get it in terms of bringing those systems back up. And really, from a communication perspective, in a cyber crisis, that is the best that you can hope for. Be honest about what's happened, but don't over communicate in terms of sharing things that you don't yet know to be absolutely true. Right? And I think that's typically, in my opinion, that's typically a sign of an organization that doesn't not know what they're doing. But you know, they might not be in total crisis, but it's probably quite clear that things aren't exactly hunky dory either.
Sure.
But I don't know. I generally use the good communication piece as a barometer for are they handling this in a calm, considered way, as opposed to headless chickens running around all over the place.
Sure. No, and I think it's no knock on you in terms of, like, I haven't heard a lot about this, because one of the things that's really standing out about a lot of the reporting is that, there's no attribution. There's not even a hint, like the government and by the way, right, I think we can both agree the government's absolutely involved at some stages. Yeah. Where it's like, wait a second, especially such an emblematic brand, and also with the implications for the broader supply chain. Right. It's not just the fact that maybe some of their partners are not going to get stood back up, or there's going to be migrations of talent. Right. So they might not have things to rely on when they do come back up. But something like this type of entity is going to have its hands, you tell me, hey, you have fingers in a lot of pies. Like this is going to be such a sprawling type of supply chain that could have implications at many various levels of defense, of just national resiliency, where you start going, wait a second, are they here? Are they still lurking? Right? There's a whole metric ton of things that they're going to have to take a look at. So, but they're keeping mum. The one thing that really does come out with a lot of this is they keep pushing that date back. So while I kind of agree with you on, hey, they don't seem to be manic in their communication style or just reactive or too punchy, which, to your point, belies that, oh my God, what's going on under the surface is if this is the public front they're putting on, it must be an absolute shit show behind the PR person. It's still disheartening to see that now it's going on for 3 weeks and that date keeps getting pushed back. Like I would expect a bigger reaction or maybe, external inquiries to be made if October 1st comes around and they're not back up and running.
Yeah. Well, so now I've just got BBC up on about this, and it's 40 minutes ago this has been published. The government's looking at ways to support companies financially in the Jaguar Land Rover supply chain. So because they halted car production at the end of August, right? So after that,
3 weeks they've been down, man. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is the thing that typically gets said in the industry is that, assuming this is ransomware, which it feels like it probably is, we're in a situation here of we always used to say when I was in consultancy, ransomware will take you out for 6 weeks if you're prepared. That's if you're prepared.
If you're prepared,
right? Yep. So they're down 3 weeks. If they're going, okay, well, October, that puts them out 4 weeks. That feels optimistic. They're probably ending up in the territory here of overpromise and underdeliver in terms of getting operations back up and running. We've got a quote here from BBC: fears are growing that some suppliers, in particular the small firms who solely rely on JLR's business, could go bust without support. Hence this idea of the government bringing in support to financial support to keep some of these companies up and running. However, and this will sound mean and unsympathetic, possibly, if you are so heavily invested as a supplier in the business of one major customer, particularly a British automotive customer, because as we mentioned, British automotive tends to go down the toilet on a pretty regular basis.
Oh no.
You have not been particularly resilient about your business revenue stream.
Why are you
this is where we start.
These poor little suppliers, right? Come on, man.
Dude, fuck you.
but like I
understand
saying.
It's hard. I get the small business thing is hard. I have been setting one up myself, right? So Super Simple Cyber will start offering services in the coming months, right? I gotta get the website up and running.
Exactly, bro.
Huh?
Maybe the Jaguar, right? Like they might need.
Maybe it's a Jaguar, and maybe they'll be my sole customer. And then once they recover, I'll be out of business. You never know. But my key point being is that I think this is where there is a crossover here in cyber resilience and business resilience, and not from the perspective of does your own cyber resilience affect how your business operates. It's how does somebody else's cyber resilience affect how your business operates? Is your own business's very operation and fundamental existence beholden to someone else not having done their cyber homework? Because that's exactly what's happened here.
It's happened here, and it's one of those where even if, say, those small businesses, by and large, I'm going to say no, but even if, let's say, hypothetically, they had good backup hygiene, immutable backups to speak of at all, right? Let's even set the bar really low. Doesn't matter because they're still shit out of luck because their main cash cow decided to scrimp on, again, one of the simplest, again, not easy. I don't want to undersell how sometimes laborious and difficult it can be to really set yourself up to have the type of backup hygiene that you need in order to eat one of these. As you said, consultancy world says 6 weeks if you're prepared. But it's not as though you and I are going to be giving advice that's going to be groundbreaking now about this. The answer to this now is the same answer as it was 5 years ago, at least, or maybe longer. Good backup hygiene. That's it. End of story. Like again, if you don't want to assume or you don't want to invest up front in keeping the ransomware out, and as we both know, you can throw a lot of money at it and still some of it's going to leak through. You have to have a setup where you have backups, you have a source of truth that you can go listen. In case of emergency, we can break the glass and go here. Right? And this doesn't have that. What gets me is that, as you said, they're owned by another country's, a firm in another country. Like the supply chain ramifications of this could be dire, right? Which is, for me, probably why they're staying dark as long as they are, right? And they're going to potentially eat the suppliers, the small fish suppliers dying, unfortunately, because they don't want to risk coming back up online and then being the typhoid Mary for all of their, potentially bigger upstream and downstream partners. Because then the liability there just goes nuts. It goes out the window. That becomes an extinction level event at that stage, right? But good Lord, man, it's what's going on in the homeland though. Like, is it just because this is like you said, Marks and Spencer was a good, barometer there, but like it seems as though
I don't know,
they get targeted.
They're getting hit a lot.
Yeah, bro.
It does feel like it, and it's not for.
Is it their support of Ukraine? We're breaking the story here first. What do you think? I don't, dude.
Could be.
I don't know. It very well as nuts as
I don't know either. And what really confounds me with this is that the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Center, they're not exactly resting on their laurels. They're not in a position where they're just being quite blasé about cybersecurity. The British government is putting a hell of a lot of effort into making sure that all businesses, great and small, are making sure that all businesses, great and small, are taking cybersecurity seriously.
Levels to it, you bastard.
I would say potentially one of the issues is, and yeah, I am gonna go there for any of you who are still complaining about being lambasted about the stupid decision that he decided to make 9 years ago. But Brexit
immediately, right? I could tell immediately where you were going.
It's one of the it's got the highest. The UK got the highest outflows of millionaires of anywhere in the first world, and you can't tell me with a straight face that kind of capital outflow isn't affecting businesses' ability to invest in core technology infrastructure.
Great point.
Operations. All right. Yeah. I would say that. I think it's a country that's just dwindling, and it's going to be a real issue if they can't sort of arrest the decline. I hate to say it because I love the place, but it's a shitty situation.
Well, on that beautiful note, on that cheery, you're not wrong, right? And I was just gonna say, right, like at least you're that national cyber approach seems a bit more coherent than more local ones. I'll give you that, and they're at least trying to really look into supply chain risk management. There's some amazing research going on there. Shout out to my guy Colin Topping. He's leading the charge there. But kind of again keeping an international focus. What have you heard of, or what are your opinions on this insanity that the Secret Service has discovered?
Oh my Christ! I was looking at that today.
Yeah, brother. Let's dive into that one.
So. Right. I think it depends on where you look at this. I mean, first, I think let's go and take it
Set
from
the stage, right?
the
Yeah.
horse's mouth, right?
Yeah.
The secret service website, because they're the ones who have broached this now. There is obvious. I decided to sort of run this through a little bit of sort of a bullshit sniffing checklist on this. So I've now followed all sides because I'm fed up of constantly seeing just one side of the news or the other. It was pissing me off. So now I try and get things from a more broader, even kind of view. But
it's not true social, it's fake news. Like, we all know that. You stop it. But continue, please. Sorry.
I mean, so if you look at the Secret Service, press release on this straight away, I mean, the obvious own backslapping going on with this one, right? So issues here, we've got imminent telecommunications threat tied to UN weeks. Track it back. They found some SIM farms. So like hundreds of thousands of SIM cards in multiple different locations within a 35-mile radius of the UN building, which if you actually plot that on a map, that's a fucking enormous area.
That really is. I was just thinking, like, is some of that in the ocean? Like, did they have some of these servers underwater? Like,
it's absolutely friggin' huge. And it's a few 100,000 SIM cards, but you're talking about a metropolitan area that probably like has about 12 million people in it. 100,000 out of 12 million is chicken feed, right? So there's that for starters. There's this, and they pitched it as, oh, this could be used to take down cell networks in New York City, as if it was going to be used to attack world leaders and go and pew the Orange Man, which I just think is totally hyperbolic and catastrophic. But
he's God's warrior, Robin. He's impervious. You stop it right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's have less of the idolatry. Thank you very much, because I don't know how the Christian nationalists can't see that one, but hey. But they pitched this as an imminent telecommunications threat. They were using absolutist phrasing like cannot be overstated, an imminent threat, but they were also using passive voice here. So they were saying this thing was used to conduct threats, not actually mentioning anyone in particular, right? So what they're doing here is they're inferring it's some, foreign agent, or I imagine what the inference is actually supposed to be here is far left Antifa are trying to knock off the elites kind of thing, even though we're a populist administration who's trying to do away with the elites somehow by being them. I don't know. It's stupid. The whole thing is like an agency victory lap. So there's no skepticism in any of it. There's no technical limitations. There's no mention like of prior failures by like carriers or regulators to limit this sort of SIM farm kind of thing. The only source that's quoted in it is the Secret Service director, Sean Curran. There's no outside experts or any independent verification included in this article. There's no hard numbers on devices as well. There's like 300 servers, 100,000 SIMs, but they're fairly vague on what they could be used to do. Like I say, could be used to disable SIM towers. Yeah, they could also use to make a shitload of calls and spam people with nuisance texts, which is the far more likely, motive here.
So I'm going to track this back to these are the people that keep calling me to offer me personal loans, is what you're saying. Like, that's confirmed. Like, it just seems as though.
How unbelievably fucking glad I am that you've brought this up, because that's actually the talking point that I wanted to do, and it's what I've prepared a whole friggin' thing. In our unscripted off-the-cuff thing, I've prepared a bunch of stuff.
That's fine.
Because I am just like that, but you've walked right into my trap, dear Omar.
Take it away, Rob. I mean, my only shout out here was going to be Marcus Hutchins, right? Malware Tech himself did a nice takedown of like a more balanced approach to what this really could be, speaking to kind of where you were like what you're saying, right? It's not all the hyperbole in the report. He follows it up with a post of, breaking news. The Secret Service has also announced they've discovered a terrifying device which can take offline New York's power grid and internet infrastructure. And it's a picture of a squirrel, right? Just to give you some context of like this is what could be. So shout out to Marcus Hutchins. He's a gem. I think he's also, from the motherland there. So, it's just something about you cheeky Brits with cyber humor It's just moths to a flame here. But please take it away with spam robocalls. What do you got?
Well, before I do that, I would say as well. So Matt Johansson, also did a pretty good skeptical run through of that as well. We'll put that in the show notes if I remember to do it. But okay, so let's look at the spam call stuff, right? So your average, Wednesday, Thursday evening, about 9:30 in the evening, where exactly when you are very, very receptive to receiving an unsolicited call for a $70,000 predatory payday bullshit loan.
100%.
And
if you called me at 7, maybe I'd listen, right? But
9:30 in the night. At 9:30 at night is exactly when I want to receive one of those calls from Caroline, spam you with bullshit loan eligibility.
Christ.
But your phone's lighting up. It looks like a local number. You answer and you regret it. Congratulations, you're pre-approved for a loan. Or I've got your loan packet here, and it's just like, for fuck's sake, really, just knock this off. Do you want to know how many? I would show you my phone, but I'm recording on it. Do you want to know in the last week how many? Because I leave them counting up, because I'm going to take screenshots and I'm going to start sending them to senators and representatives. I won't name mine specifically, but no, I'm gonna start sending this to representatives and stuff, because this is in senators, because this is bloody stupid. So Americans have been hit with nearly 5 billion spam calls in a single month earlier this year. That's more than 150 million a day. That's a call for every man, woman, and child in the country on about a once a week basis.
Yeah.
And I will give you some context as to sort of why there's such a strong influx of this now. This wasn't happening to near the same degree December 2024 and earlier, for probably about a good 4 or so years. I'll let people work out the middle in that one. But from January onwards, we've been suffering a very large uptick of this shit. So
I wonder.
Why are these calls happening? Why are they allowed to keep happening? It might have something to do with the timing of them blowing up.
Sure.
And that's probably where there's a few factors like politics, deregulation, money, start coming in. So I looked into the history of some of this. So 2000s, auto dialers, do not call list. Right, 2003 was when the do not call registry started getting set up, and it worked a little bit with legitimate telemarketers, because they'll abide by the law, but criminals aren't necessarily known for them.
That's kind of it's kind of in the title, right?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
You think
so enforcement fines were announced, but collections are kind of difficult, all that. So it doesn't really have an awful lot of teeth. 2010s, you had voice over IP kind of explosion, so it massively reduced the cost of dialers, and so this kind of had like a bit of an explosion. Caller ID spoofing also got to be much easier as well, so that made it more difficult. People could no longer really avoid, or they could, but they wouldn't really avoid answering, because this stuff would come from local numbers. Right. Then something called, in 2021, something called Stir/Shaken was rolled out, sent delivered James Bond. I think that was the whole point. And it was supposed to be like call authentication to end spoofing and nix that, but it only works on certain parts of the network, like legacy landlines, international call routes, and stuff like that. Still let through enormous volumes of unauthenticated traffic. It was as far as the carriers were concerned, it was a win in their books, because they were like, look at all these things that we're doing to reduce spam calls, but none of the end consumers are actually like feeling this. And part of this is like kind of by design. The carriers make money off every call that they route. So the Verizons, the AT&Ts, whoever else of the world, they make money each time they pass on a call. So even this scam traffic does generate fees for them. So that's a perverse incentive for them to keep just letting it happen. The only thing that's really going to stop them is regulation, but that's not really happening. Small voice over IP resellers act as gateways as well, so they don't really care about who they're passing on, because they're small guys along the chain. They're making money from passing on the
just on the activity, right? Yep.
Exactly. So they have little incentive to vet their clients whose calls they're passing on. Regulators are obviously too slow. The FCC and the FTC are just big lumbering machines with, even if they are sharp teeth, they're a little bit
worms in their brains too. Like you gotta, the new regulatory requirement is if you had one of those departments, you have to have had a brain worm in the past 20 years.
Yeah, and also you have to have a penchant for blackmailing major entertainment corporations.
That's in the nice to have on the spec. Not the must have.
Yeah, no, it's not necessary, but it's nice. So the rest of this as well, there's technical loopholes around it. We've mentioned the stir shake and only authenticates some traffic. There's calls that bounce through that are on analog systems. The scammers get an easy out whenever they're using foreign carriers because the foreign carriers aren't under jurisdiction, and it's going to take the DOJ an awful lot to go after foreign phone.
It's a nice cutout to get around it.
Yeah. Yep. And much as there are traceback groups, so coalitions who will try and trace these calls back to where they came from, the cooperation along the chain of carriers is voluntary. So any individual carrier, these small voice over IP guys who are forwarding on traffic, can, if they feel so inclined, turn around and go, no, we're not going to help you.
True.
And then by the time, and because this can take a long time, by the time your sort of originators, your scam centers in India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, wherever it may be, have been identified, they've kind of moved on in terms of the tactics that they're using. They're on different lines. They are multiple steps away from where it was that they, how it was that they were initiating these spam calls in the first place. So the robocalls in January 2025 jumped to 4.7 billion. That was an 8% increase over December.
Damn.
By April, that total was nearly 5 billion, and that's the highest in recent history.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know why this happened? Looser federal enforcement since the beginning of the year, because we go and under the guise of efficiency, we got the FCC, we got the FTC, we got everyone in central government who's working to do this. I remember hearing something a little while ago. I think it was a Scott Galloway bit about when people question the things that the government do and the reason, what do my taxes actually go to? Government does all the things that are necessary but are not profitable, so private enterprise won't. This is one of those things.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the only way now of dealing with all of the spam call stuff is to get apps on your phone for paid monthly services that block this shit. And that is roping everybody in to the subscription economy.
Yeah.
Where you are tied in, and if you don't, you get bombarded, whether it be with advertising or whether it be with predatory ads. It's bullshit, and I'm tired of it.
What can we do? I mean, it sounds like I'm just going to look up an app, sadly. Like because the number you were going to say, right, in terms of how many calls you got in the last week, I was going to take a stab and say over 100, because that sounds right about, like, if I let it go for 3 or 4 days, and I had about 60 to 70 on there. And it's just like, thank goodness I have a very loving and understanding partner, right, where she's not like, who's calling you at 9:30, 9:45, and I'm like, go ahead and pick it up. This drives me nuts. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, if it's hi, this is Stephanie from, then if you've got a sufficiently jealous partner, Stephanie from payday bullshit, I'm gonna get my greasy Floridian boss driving a Ferrari, a new Ferrari payday loans bullshit.
That was such a nice mental picture. Like I feel like I'm there, right? It brought me back to The Big Short.
It's always some slick-haired scumbag driving like a sort of mid-2000s
like a
Ferrari.
Maserati, or a Ferrari. Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah.
Good call.
So, well, I mean, what can we do? Well, let's first things first. Let's stop saying likening regulation to a dirty word. Regulation is the right kind of regulation is what stops normal, hardworking, everyday people, regardless of their political leanings and beliefs. This kind of regulation is something that stops them being harassed on a daily basis by people who have no moral compass and want to take the everyday, hard-working American for all the cash that they are worth. So let's stop saying that regulation is a dirty fucking word and get in touch with representatives to stop this shit.
I hope you're running soon.
Yes, fairly fucking entrenched on my soapbox here.
No, I mean, but like it absolutely makes sense because I noticed the uptick, and then, but even somewhat of a cyber literate person as I am, I'm going, I don't know what the hell to do, right? I've been asked by family members, extended family members, in terms of what the shit that we do, and it's really like you stumbled on, and that's all I could find was, okay, we got to start paying somebody for the peace of mind that we had prior for free.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like six people are making money off that transaction in some form or fashion, if that's how it turned out. But so far, I see no other outs, right? Like I've answered some of them and said, take me off the list, and then oh, this will take 24 hours to update. That hasn't abated it because even while we were talking, I got two. Right? It's already
I'm on the do not call list, and it's done absolutely fuck all since January.
Yeah, right. It's same here, dude. It's done nothing. And when you started talking about like where some of these international scam centers are, then it brought us back to, oh, there we go. This is an offshoot or an enabling technology for pig butchering. Right? It's the same sort of MO, right? So makes sense. And it also makes sense why you're so fired up about it, right? Like I am too, but like also once I started seeing the pig butchering through line, I was like, oh my guy, this is his thing. He's right. He's right. And you're not wrong. So please,
sure.
please run locally, right? Become a representative and sound this mess.
Can't do that yet.
Yeah.
In the meantime, whilst you're not able to vote for me to sort out bullshit on the Hill with regards to spam calls, let's also leave this whole sort of idea of we don't want government intervention in things, in the right things, because this illusion of freedom, of small government, and we're free of the hands that keep us down, and all of this sort of stuff allows you to be not free from people who would seek to bombard you day after day after day, impacting your mental health, pissing you off to high hell, irritating you to the point of madness. That is not freedom. That is being slave to a different kind of bad actor.
Nice. I think we ended there, man. That was an
No, I have more.
speech.
I have more on what we can do.
Oh shit.
Because what else you can do is, when it comes to election time, is you can elect state attorneys general, such as North Carolina AG Jeff Jackson, who has declared war on these guys. He's publicly warned telcos, if they continue to let scam traffic flow, they will face state legal action. Good. He's cobbled together with several other states, formed a coalition with, I believe, Indiana and Virginia, to address this issue, and they are starting to fight back against these telecoms companies. He actually did a really good reel a few weeks ago about this specific issue. So yes, there's that, because I've kind of run out of steam.
No, listen, it's plenty. I like that it was an impassioned way to bookend, right, our return, and hopefully and keep more of those impassioned speeches coming at the listeners at a more regular cadence down the road.
I'll finish with this. The real story here is structure. So when the FCC is captured by industries it's supposed to regulate, enforcement becomes symbolic. It's a sham. When Congress underfunds customer protection, the FTC can't collect. When deregulation is pitched as efficiency, what you really get is predation. If state AGs like Jeff Jackson are forced to fill the vacuum, that tells us that federal policy is broken. Spam calls aren't an annoyance anymore. They are a clearest case study of how regulatory design, lobbying, and campaign finance intersect to let systemic fraud thrive. Your government is allowing fraudsters to target you. And that is decidedly anti-American.
Well said.
Thank you. I did.
You want to take us out?
I think that's the bombshell we have to leave it on. We'll be back soon. We are not going to be on a regular release cadence, i.e. like every Monday or anything like that, because honestly, it just hasn't been fitting with the life. It's part of the reason we've had these really large sort of stretches of nothing published, because, you know, the weekend comes around and suddenly it's Sunday night and editing's not been done and things like that, and then it becomes a whole pressure thing. So actually, we're going to be weekly-ish. We're going to release when we've got it. Actually, only a few days after this comes out, we have something that we've recorded previously, an interview with a Canadian guy called Kerry Johnson, who is very into phishing science. Not that one, the email phishing. Very, very interesting conversation, but that will be following this up a few days afterwards. So you'll kind of get a feel for that, where that slightly lumpy but somewhat more regular release cadence is. But until we are back next time, that's a goodbye from me, having taken myself off my soapbox. And I'll leave it to Omar for his farewell.
Adios.
And in the meantime, stay cyber safe.